What if the person you trusted with your whole heart, the person you gave your youth, your loyalty, and your future to, was secretly living a double life behind your back? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about how a woman discovered that the man she loved for over a decade wasn't the person she thought he was at all. I want you to imagine being with someone for more than 10 years. High school sweethearts. The kind of love that feels like it's written in the stars. The kind of relationship where everyone assumes you'll grow old together. That was me. I was only 16 when I first fell for him. My first love, my first everything. We grew up side by side, shared dreams, laughed through late nights, and whispered about the future like it was already ours. And for years, I held on to the belief that this bond, this commitment, was unbreakable. Fast forward to now, I'm 27. Married to him for almost 3 years. By this point, I thought marriage would mean stability, loyalty, and partnership. But instead, it has been a slow unraveling. You see, even in the earliest years, I knew deep down that he had a side to him that I couldn't quite reach. He was secretive, often evasive with simple questions. He had a way of twisting the truth until I questioned my own reality. Looking back, I realize I mistook manipulation for charm. I thought he was just private. But when you love someone that long, when you invest your entire youth into a person, you don't just walk away at the first red flag. You convince yourself it's worth it. You tell yourself, it's just who he is. He'll change. He loves me. Our relationship wasn't without problems. He could be cold, dismissive, and sometimes even cruel with his words. He would criticize me over small things, my hair, my clothes, even the way I laughed. At first, I thought maybe that's just what couples do, but over time, it chipped away at my confidence. I stopped suggesting things, stopped sharing parts of myself, just to avoid his harshness. The real turning point came last year. It was supposed to be a celebration, our wedding anniversary. A weekend where I thought we'd reconnect, where maybe I'd see a glimpse of the man I fell in love with. But instead, he shattered me. He cheated on our anniversary. Now I know what you might be thinking. That should have been the end. And believe me, part of me knew it. But relationships aren't always that simple, are they? When you've been with someone for more than a decade, leaving feels like tearing off your own skin. So I convinced myself to work through it. I told myself people make mistakes. I told myself that if he was willing to fight for us, I could too. Except he wasn't fighting. He was pretending. He apologized just enough to keep me there, but his actions told another story. Because even after his betrayal, he never cut ties with her. He stayed in contact, kept that secret line open. And slowly, I started to grow tired. By this point, I was in nursing school, just 1 semester away from graduation. And in my head, I made a silent promise. Stay until school is done. Survive until then. And when you graduate, leave. It was the first time I let myself imagine a future without him. For so long, I thought we were bound together forever. But now my heart was whispering, you don't have to stay. You don't have to endure this. Still, I had no idea just how deep his deception ran. The cheating, the lies, the emotional neglect. It was only scratching the surface. What I was about to discover would make every moment of our marriage feel like a carefully crafted performance. There were always little things that didn't add up. Late lunches, his phone glued to his hand, nights where he came home later than usual with excuses that felt paper thin. I'd ask simple questions, and he'd either explode in anger or brush me off with silence. And anytime I tried to suggest new things in our intimacy, ways to keep the spark alive, he would shut me down so harshly that I felt ashamed for even asking. It confused me. I was open. I was willing. I wanted us to explore together, to keep our connection strong. But instead, he made me feel like I was asking for too much. Little did I know, he was living out his desires elsewhere. Now, when I think about it, the signs were always there. The way he criticized me constantly, the way he never truly invested in us. He always kept a part of himself hidden. I just didn't want to believe it. Because when you've given someone your whole heart since you were a teenager, the thought of them betraying you in such a devastating way feels impossible. I gave him my trust, my love, even my virginity. I thought we were building a life together, but as I would soon find out, the life I thought we were building was nothing but a facade. And his true world, the one I was never invited into, was darker, more deceitful, and more humiliating than I could have ever imagined. I was just months away from finishing school when the truth finally came crashing down. A discovery that turned my marriage into a stranger's story. A discovery that showed me my husband wasn't just unfaithful. He was living a double life I was never supposed to uncover. And when I tell you what I found, you won't believe it. When someone cheats on you, you expect the worst of it to be the act itself. The betrayal, the lies, the intimacy stolen. But for me, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came after. Because instead of cutting ties, instead of proving he was truly sorry, he carried on, quietly, secretly, boldly. Every message he sent to her behind my back was like a knife. I didn't always catch them right away, but when I did, my stomach sank with the same heaviness each time. He wasn't letting her go. He wasn't letting anyone go. And yet he had the audacity to look me in the eye and say, "I love you. I'm here. I want this marriage." It was gaslighting at its finest. He made me feel like I was overreacting, like I was the crazy one. And I stayed silent. Because deep down I was afraid. Afraid that if I pushed too hard, I'd lose everything. I had already invested in him, but nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered next. It started small, an odd notification I happened to catch when his phone lit up at night. I wasn't even looking for trouble that evening, but curiosity has a way of whispering when you're already suspicious. I picked up his phone and saw the name of an app I'd never heard before. FetLife. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of game, maybe even a fitness tracker. But when I opened it, my world tilted. FetLife wasn't a game. It wasn't fitness. It was an entire underground community of sexual fantasies, kinks, and hookups. And his profile? Oh, it was active. Very active. I scrolled through his searches. Women only, glory holes, casual hookups, hotel orgies. He wasn't just browsing, he was participating. I saw threads of messages, arrangements made during his lunch breaks at work. I saw photos, invitations, flirtations that went far beyond harmless. He was living a life I didn't even know existed. And then, the cherry on top, his fetishes. A foot fetish, for one, which in itself wouldn't have shocked me if he had ever been honest about it. But he wasn't. For years, I had tried to open up conversations about our sex life, suggested trying new things. And every single time he shot me down like I was disgusting for even asking. Meanwhile, he was out there living his secret desires with strangers. It was like a punch to the chest. I wasn't just betrayed, I was humiliated. Because I would have been open. I was willing to explore with him. And yet, he chose strangers over me. But it didn't end there. The rabbit hole kept going deeper. He had subscriptions to multiple OnlyFans accounts. Not just one or two, dozens. Money that could have gone toward bills, groceries, or even supporting. My education was being poured into feeding his addiction. And some of these women? They weren't random strangers. He was flirting with women on social media who worked at the same facility as me. Women who saw me every day, smiled at me, and maybe even knew about what he was doing behind my back. I can't describe the level of humiliation that burned through me. To imagine people around me being in on a secret I wasn't even aware of, it was crushing. I felt exposed, foolish, like I was the last person in the world to know about the man I thought was my husband. The worst part wasn't even the sex, the apps, or the money. The worst part was realizing just how much of my life had been a lie. I thought back to our proposal. That night when he got down on one knee, looked me in the eyes, and promised me forever. At the time, I cried tears of joy. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. But now I saw that only days after that moment, he had created the account that led to his double life. Do you know what it feels like to realize the happiest memories of your life were staged? That the person you loved wasn't really present, wasn't really committed, wasn't really who you thought they were? It's like mourning a death. Except the person isn't gone. He's still there, sitting in the same house, eating dinner, across from you, pretending nothing's wrong. And that's when something inside me finally broke. I couldn't look at him the same anymore. His voice grated on me. His presence felt suffocating. Every smile, every touch, every casual "I love you" felt fake, rehearsed, hollow. I used to cling to him despite the pain, desperate to salvage what we had. But now I was disgusted, turned off, done. For years, I had been too weak to leave. I had convinced myself that staying was easier than starting over. But now, with my graduation in sight, the future no longer seemed so far away. The chains that once held me down suddenly felt looser, and I told myself, just get through this last semester. Focus on school. Finish what you started. And when you walk across that stage with your degree, you walk away from him too. Still, part of me wanted answers. I asked him one night, why? Why would you do this to me? Why hide all of this? Do you know what he said? Nothing. He refused to talk about it. He shrugged me off like my pain didn't matter, like my questions weren't worth acknowledging. That silence was louder than any confession. It told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't going to change. He didn't care. And that's when my love finally died. I thanked God in that moment that we didn't have children together. Because if we did, leaving would have been even harder. I remembered one time, years ago, when I thought I was pregnant. The test came back with a false positive, but before I even had time to process, he looked at me and said, "If it's real, get rid of it. I can't raise a kid. I have to take care of my family, my mom, my siblings." Do you know how much that hurt? To realize he didn't see me as his family. That in his eyes, I was always second. That should have been my wake-up call. That should have been the day I ran. But I stayed. I stayed because I was too afraid to start over. Now, I saw it clearly. Staying had only cost me more pain. So I made my choice. Finish school, leave him behind, never look back. But as the weeks went by, new details kept surfacing. More secrets, more lies, more betrayals that made me question how I ever loved this man in the first place. And the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a double life, and I was finally ready to expose it all. When I thought I had already seen the worst of it, when I thought I had uncovered every secret he was hiding, the universe showed me I was wrong. What I had seen on FetLife, the OnlyFans subscriptions, the flirting with coworkers, it was only the surface of his hidden life. The deeper I looked, the darker it became. There were messages I hadn't seen before, messages tucked away in private folders, conversations hidden under fake names. And in those messages, the truth unfolded piece by piece. He wasn't just sneaking off during his lunch breaks for quick encounters. He was planning elaborate meetups at hotels, some of which stretched over entire weekends, group settings, multiple partners. Events that were more organized than any romantic getaway he had ever planned for me. It sickened me. For years, I begged him to spend quality time with me, to plan a trip, a date night, something, anything. And he always had excuses. Too tired, too busy, too broke. But somehow for strangers, he found the time, the energy, the money. Do you know how cruel that realization feels? To watch the person you loved invest more into strangers than they ever did into you? What made it even more horrifying was how well he wore his mask around me. I would sit across from him at dinner, listening to him talk about his day at work, never knowing that hours earlier he had been with someone else. I would kiss him goodbye in the morning, completely unaware that his meetings were actually excuses to slip away into his secret world. He came home like nothing happened. Smiling, joking, watching TV with me, while I had no clue he was living a life I was excluded from. It made me question everything, every anniversary, every holiday, every late night at work. Was it ever real? Or had I just been a placeholder, the cover story he used to make himself look like a decent man? For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My chest felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of a secret too big for my body to hold. I replayed memories over and over again. The way he used to criticize me, the way he used to dismiss me when I asked for more intimacy, more connection. The way he always made me feel like I was the problem. And now I realized it was never me. It was him. The manipulation, the lies, the neglect. They weren't accidents. They were deliberate. Because if he kept me feeling small, if he kept me doubting myself, then I'd never have the courage to leave. That's the thing about manipulators. They don't want partners. They want prisoners. One night, I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my hands trembling, my heart aching. I asked myself, who are you anymore? When did you lose yourself? And for the first time in years, I answered honestly, I lost myself the day I let him convince me I wasn't enough. That was the turning point. I realized that no matter how much pain I felt, no matter how much betrayal I carried, I wasn't powerless. I still had a choice. I couldn't erase the past, but I could decide my future. And my future didn't include him. A few days later, I stumbled upon the worst discovery yet. Among his messages was a conversation with someone new, someone he had met only days after proposing to me. Yes, you heard that right. The same week he promised me forever, he was already setting up his double life. That broke me in a way nothing else had. It wasn't just betrayal, it was mockery. He had stood there, ring in hand, tears in his eyes, telling me I was his soulmate. And behind that act, he was already building a future that didn't include me at all. That was the final straw. I knew then that everything I thought we had, the love, the loyalty, the history, was an illusion. A story I told myself because I was too afraid to face the truth. After that night, something inside me hardened. I stopped crying over him. I stopped begging for answers I was never going to get. I stopped clinging to the idea of us. Instead, I focused on me. I poured my energy into school. Every time I felt the pain creeping back in, I reminded myself, you're almost done. Just one more semester. You've survived worse. You can survive this too. And slowly, day by day, I started to feel stronger. Not healed, not yet, but stronger. Meanwhile, he carried on like nothing had happened. When I confronted him about some of what I found, he brushed it off, told me I was overreacting. He refused to discuss it. He wouldn't apologize. He wouldn't even acknowledge the depth of what he'd done. That's when I realized he wasn't in denial because he didn't know. He was in denial because he didn't care, and that was the most liberating realization of all. Because once I accepted that he didn't care, I stopped trying to make him. I started to imagine my future without him. A future where I wasn't walking on eggshells, where I wasn't competing with strangers on the internet, where I wasn't shrinking myself just to keep someone else comfortable. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to dream again, and I promised myself that when graduation day came, I would walk out of that school not just with a degree, but with a new life. But leaving someone after more than a decade together isn't simple. It's messy, it's painful, it's terrifying. And as much as I wanted to run, I had to prepare myself for the fallout, the confrontation, the goodbye, and the reality of finally letting go. And when that day came, it wasn't what I expected at all. Graduation was only weeks away, and with every passing day, my resolve grew stronger. I had survived the lies, the betrayal, the nights spent crying into my pillow, and the humiliation of realizing my marriage was built on deception. But now, I wasn't just surviving, I was preparing. I didn't tell him my plans. Why would I? For years, I had given him access to my every thought, my every feeling, and what did he do with that trust? He weaponized it. He used it to manipulate me, control me, and keep me trapped. So this time, I kept my silence. I started setting money aside from every paycheck. A little here, a little there. Enough to build a cushion for myself when I walked away. I started looking at apartments, browsing, through listings late at night when he thought I was asleep. I reached out to friends I had distanced myself from, rekindling connections I would need once I was free. For the first time, my secret was one of survival, not betrayal, not lust, but freedom. In the meantime, I began to detach emotionally. When he spoke, I listened with blank ears. When he criticized me, I didn't fight back. I just smiled and thought to myself, soon you'll never speak to me again. It was strange, the sense of calm that washed over me. For so long, I had been drowning in his chaos. Now, I was finding peace in the thought of leaving. And he noticed. Of course he did. He started asking why I seemed distant. Why I didn't laugh at his jokes. Why I didn't ask about his day. And every time, I bit my tongue, because the truth would come soon enough. The night before my graduation, I decided I was done pretending. I sat him down, looked him in the eyes, and for the first time in years, I spoke without fear. I know everything, I told him. He blinked, confused. What do you mean? I know about FetLife, about the orgies, about the women on your lunch breaks, about OnlyFans, about everything you thought I'd never find. His face went pale. He tried to deny it at first, his usual weapon of choice. But I didn't let him. I laid it all out. Dates, screenshots, details. With every word I spoke, the mask he wore crumbled. And when he finally realized he couldn't lie his way out, he did what cowards always do. He shut down. He shrugged. He muttered, I don't want to.